cameras elicit such divided opinions as the AE-1. I mean, you go into forums and people, I mean, they get so emotional about this camera, either because they hate it or they really like it. Now, I am definitely not one of those extremes, but I think there's a lot to this camera that we're going to discuss today. So let's look at the technical specs, and this is the part that has nothing to do with my opinion. The model is the Canon AE-1. That AE basically stands for auto exposure. It is a 35mm format single lens reflex camera. The origin and date of this camera, the camera was made in Japan. The AE-1 was released in April of 1976. So about a year from now, it'll be 50 years old. And it marked the start of the Canon A series cameras, right? The AT1 and all those things, the AL1. And in 1981, the AE-1 was replaced by the AE-1 program. And the main difference, as the name denotes, is that you had a full program mode in the latter, in the AE program, as opposed to the AE-1, which is just a shutter priority auto exposure. This camera is actually electronic, or it uses integrated electronics, and was the first Canon SLR that was equipped with a microprocessor. I don't think it was the first SLR. I think Nikon might have had one before, but this was still quite new technology for the time. The mount, it uses an FD breech lock mount, and it was released with this 50mm 1.8 SC or the F1.4 SSC, and that mount is backwardly compatible with the old FL lenses and then also with the newer NFD lenses. The shutter is a horizontal travel focal plane shutter, and it has cloth curtains. It has the settings of bulb and then 2 seconds all the way to 1,000th of a second, and the shutter is actually electronically controlled. It does have an X-Sync socket, so you can use external flashes on it. It does have a hot shoe. The flash sync of this is actually at 1/60th of a second, which is kind of slow. You can use a dedicated Canon Speedlite 1558, and then when you use it on the this camera hot shoe, it'll give you full automatic flash exposure as well, that capability. It does actually have a self timer, and it has a little blinking LED that shows you that the self timer is activated. The viewfinder, it's a fixed eye level pentaprism, and in terms of coverage, because some people seem to be very interested in that, it gives you 93.5% vertical, which is fine, and 96% horizontal coverage, which I think is quite nice. It has that split image rangefinder with a microprism that encircles it at the center of your screen. I think they call it the Fresnel matte screen. Then in the right hand side, you'll have your exposure meter needle, your aperture scale, overexposure and underexposure warning, and the battery check indicator, which you activate by pressing that button. And yeah, there's actually quite a lot of information in your viewfinder. This here is what I suppose you would call on most cameras the depth of field preview, or the stop down preview. So if you look through the viewfinder while that is depressed, then you would see the image. It will be darker if you've stopped down through the viewfinder. So that's like your depth of field preview, and if you press that little button, it reverts back to the normal setting, which is open aperture. Now, as this is an auto exposure camera, one of the first ones, or early in the development of these cameras, it has the option of the through the lens full aperture metering with shutter speed priority. So with other words, you set the shutter speed, you set the camera to the A setting, and the camera will then just set the aperture automatically. And then you also have your through the lens stop down match needle metering. So that is if you're not in the auto setting, you have your shutter speed and your aperture, and when you look through the viewfinder and you half press the shutter, it'll show you where the camera thinks your aperture should be set at. It uses center weighted averaging, and for those who's interested in this, it's a silicon photocell that it uses. So you do your meter reading while you're looking through the viewfinder by half pressing the shutter or by pressing that little button there. Then you have this little silver button, and that is basically a backlight compensation, some people call it, a 1.5 EV exposure compensation. So if you press that in the auto mode, it'll give you 1.5 EV overexposure compensation or overexposure. Now the light meter accommodates film speeds of ISO 25 to 3200, you'll find the ISO setting over there, and it's actually denoted as ASA on the camera. Now, if you use the FD lenses, you get full aperture metering and the auto exposure coupling or AE coupling. But if you use one of these old FL lenses, unfortunately, you don't get the auto exposure and you can only use the stop-down metering on the camera. The winder, it's a manual winder, and you'll see it comes back to like a 30-degree angle, then you know it's ready for the shutter to be fired. You can also use an auto winder on this camera. It's the Canon Winder A, it's called, and it can give you 2 frames a second speed. It is not a motor drive, with other words, and it's very easy to attach. You just line up the little screw thread with the tripod socket. There we go. Oops, there we go. Make sure it's switched off while you do that. See, it's still switched off, so if I shoot, I still need to wind it manually. But if I switch it on, there you can hear it go, and I press the shutter, it automatically winds. This is a nice little tool. It uses 4 AA batteries of its own. Now, the camera uses a 4LR44 battery. It cannot function without it, but it lasts a really long time. You have a frame counter like all SLRs do, but this one counts up from 1, and when you open the film back, it resets to 0. How you rewind the film, it's basically your manual camera top crank, and you press this little button in there, the release, and then you just turn it to wind your film. The dimensions of the camera is 141 by 87 by 48 millimeters, and it weighs 590 grams, which is not particularly heavy. The construction is mostly plastic, and it's only this base plate that I think is like an alloy, metal alloy, and then obviously some parts are made of metal, but it's mostly plastic. The body was also available in a black finish, and then like the silver top plate finish like mine. According to the Canon Museum website, it was released at a price of 80,000 yen when you took the FD 50mm f1.4 SSC lens, so that's about $300 at the time. And according to Wikipedia, this camera sold 5.7 million units. I'd say that is very successful. The price today is between $200 and $300, but you will see some crazy prices. But I think if you look around, you will still find some bargains below $200, but most of the time between $200 and $300 is the price that you're looking at for this camera. The beauty of this camera is that the FD system of lenses and also the FL lenses are really vast, and you've got so many options. The light metering in various conditions are very good and accurate. Not everybody likes shutter priority, especially if you're into landscapes, but I shoot a lot of handheld images, and then shutter priority is preferable for me, but I can see that being a drawback for some people. It's a fairly plastic camera, so it's light, but it might break easier. I've heard people say that the ergonomics are horrible. It works for me. The shutter is really smooth. I like that shutter sound. I don't know if this is true. Somebody said they sampled that shutter sound for the iPhone. I don't know if that's true. Maybe you can confirm or debunk that for us in the comments. I shoot everything manual, so I don't use the shutter priority auto exposure. So but with the readings that I get when I shoot, the light meter is great, and that is really important. I really like it. So if you want to start in film photography, then yeah, this is an option for you. They're quite pricey. I think they're too expensive, in my opinion. I see no reason why you wouldn't have a great time using this camera, but that's just me. So I'm interested in your opinion. Do you like the camera? Do you hate it? Put it in the comments below. Then also maybe if you've got some extra information or some questions, if I can't answer it, maybe somebody else in the comments can. And I will put some affiliate links down in the description, so if you want to maybe get your hands on one of these, you can click through there and buy it online. But that really concludes my little video about the Canon AE-1. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.